Hello everyone.
Hello. Hi, sir. How are you? Ramaya sir, are we expecting Rajiv sir to join and Chandrasekhar sir?
Yeah, children, they are joining now. They are downloading the bricks, Chandrasekhar Rao sir, and the director is
Sure.
joining in a minute. Yeah,
Okay. Sure. Okay.
yeah.
Hello, Chandrasekhara sir. How are you?
Hello, am I audible?
Hello, sir. Yes. How are you, sir?
Okay. Thank you.
There's a lot of noise.
Maybe some echo. Echo somewhere.
Immediately go to no need to that room.
All students are
Chintan, could you please add Dr. Rajiv Jain as a co-host?
Yes, Shibu sir. I'm just
Yeah, could you please add him?
Has
Yes.
he joined the session?
Yep.
Hello, Rajiv sir. This is Chintan from Bloomberg. Are you able to hear me?
lot of noise.
Sir, you are mute, sir. Rajiv sir, you are on mute.
We can hear you very well. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Shall we start, sir?
Yes, sir. We should start. Yes, sir.
No, lot of
Echo. Maybe shall we all mute? Mute, sir?
is somewhat better. Okay. So we'll start the webinar, sir. So good afternoon to all the participants. And today is Rangapillai Library and School of Management, collaboratively, in collaboration with Bloomberg, organizing a training program on Bloomberg database. And this is one of the most important databases required by the School of Management, and it is exclusively meant for the management students. And then we have actually two guests in our webinar. One is our director, Professor Rangapillai, and another is Professor K. Chandrasekhara, the dean of the school. So, without much of introduction, we would like to go on with the program. I would like to request Professor Rangapillai to actually give the introductory remarks about the webinar. Sir, Professor Rangapillai.
Good afternoon. Professor Rabaya, University Librarian. Professor K. Chandrasekhara Rao, Dean School of Management. Faculty of the Library. Speaker of the session, Mr. Chintan Lotia. Participants and research scholars and research scientists. It is my pleasure to be with you on the occasion of webinar on Bloomberg Training for Pondicherry University, which is being organized by the Pondicherry University Library, and lecture will be delivered by
Professor Chandrasekhar Rao, Bhaskar sir, for helping me in organizing this session. What I'm going to do right now is share my screen and start with the presentation on Bloomberg. So let me know if my screen is coming through and it's visible to you. Is my screen coming through?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the way I start the session is I've prepared a brief presentation for Pondicherry University, which I will cover in the first 15 minutes, explaining how Bloomberg is very instrumental, not just for the institute, but for the students and the faculty members as well.
Chintan, sorry to interrupt. Can you hear? Yes. There will be introduction about the Bloomberg.
I can hear you.
Yeah, Professor Rao, sir. And then we will proceed.
Sure.
Ramesh, sir, can you please take over now?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. There's a small disconnect.
Ramaya, sir, yes. Can you please take?
Okay. There is a small disconnect. I think I have gone out and I have come back again. Thank you for organizing this meeting, because we are the end users of the Bloomberg services in the campus. The School of Management is the major user. Our different MBA programs, the CAM program, they're widely uses your Bloomberg data. Of course, our teachers also, they work out a lot of research papers based upon this Bloomberg data. We are very happy for the services you have offered, and recently you have given a type of trial version extension for our teachers. And by now you might have seen the statistics is working very well. Statistics shows that at least 3 out of 5 teachers are very extensively utilizing it. Our campus utilizes not only for commerce and management purposes, even our statistics department uses, and statistics research scholars, they use this data. And because especially when we are working on intraday data or tick-to-tick data, only the source is available with Bloomberg. Although the Bloomberg access requires little training, because in every department only one scholar is well trained in that, and he will slowly takes the remaining teachers also, he trains them. So therefore, there is a need for this type of training for the benefit of our teachers as well as for our research scholars. Of course, PG students, we are not right now. Many are allowed here. The reason is we are a little afraid of the bandwidth, because the university bandwidth is not very well, because there is a cyclone hit in the Pondicherry today. Therefore, we are networks wise, we are not that clear now. We are happy anyhow. We want the training, this type of training, 2-3 modules if you make it, because especially there is one area where our scholars are very good with respect to stock market data, cross-country stock market data, they are easily downloading. But when it comes to the country information, when it comes to the industry, country-wise, industry-wise and all that, they are finding difficult and they are taking a lot of time also. So maybe we request you to organize this type of events little frequently, as frequently as possible, because the students, if you give some 10 days, 15 days time, there will be an exclusive group which wants to have an exclusive difficulties that they're facing. If you can address them, we will all be very happy. Thank you, Chetan, and I think we are eagerly waiting to listen to your the broad features. Many times we have been self-learning. This is all Bloomberg is used in this campus by our own learning. There is no manual, there is nothing, nobody trained us, and we just open it and we'll try to open and try to go on. The students also taking up this back exam, and maybe I have to tell you 2-3 years back, the All India champion is from our campus. And from our campus, he has got an offer to work in Singapore financial markets. That is how the campus best utilizes your product, and all these are the ambassadors for your product when they go back to the industry. they will be looking at the Bloomberg usage there. I will be very happy for this webinar should have a series of webinars for the benefit of our staff. Thank you. Thank you. Back to you. Back to Chetan.
Thank you, sir. Ramaya sir will introduce Chetan.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ramaya sir, over to you.
Hello. Yeah.
Please, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the comprehensive introduction about the database. Now I would like to introduce actually Mr. Chintan. He is an account manager from Bloomberg covering South Indian region. And before joining this, he was also looking into working with the same organization in a different section like analytics department in Bloomberg. And he is, before joining to Bloomberg, he was working with financial technology company. And he is holding a master's degree in finance and also a qualified CFA. And then actually what I want, so we would like to conduct these webinars actually in different stages because they are all serious users, not just like this. So this time the arrangement was a little bit haphazard. There was a lot of noise and this problem. We conducted actually over 20 webinars, never happened like this. So next we have to plan actually, one is elementary one, another one is actually intermediate one, the third one is an advanced one. So you need to plan actually 3 levels of actually webinar, which will be addressing 3 levels of users, so that by our students, scholars and the faculty will be trained thoroughly in using these webinars, because we spend a lot of money actually in subscribing the database, and we want to optimally utilize and get actually, as our dean mentioned, of course, and they are the people that will be actually promoting your database. And it is your responsibility to conduct these webinars, to train them optimally so that you will be able to market your product. So with this brief introduction, actually, I would like to actually request Mr. Chintan to actually take over this and conduct the webinar. And actually later, what is to be done, actually we'll work it out on. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hello.
Shibu sir, can I start?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Firstly, apologies everyone for some of the technical issues that we are facing. We are all adopting to work from home and study from home. So if there's any technical issue, I will immediately rejoin again. I would request everyone to just stay on with the session, because it's going to be a very, very interesting session in the next 1.5 hours. 90 minutes, we are going to see some of the tools on Bloomberg that can help all of the students during placements, during research work, projects, and so on. But before I begin, I would like to say a big thank you to Professor Director Rajiv, Professor Chandrasekhar, Professor Ramaya, Shibu sir, and the entire library committee for helping me in organizing this session. And I have very well taken the feedback of Professor Chandrasekhar. We wish to have more of these sessions for Pondicherry University in the coming days. And I was very glad to hear that Bloomberg is being utilized as a product for all the faculty and the students as well. And what we can do, to increase this engagement and actually help the students with the placement week, the faculty for the research. There would be a lot of PhD scholars as well at Pondicherry University. So we will try and have more of these sessions going ahead. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen, and if anyone can just confirm if it's coming through, that'll be great. So is my screen visible, which says introduction, introducing Bloomberg for education?
Yes, Chintan, it is visible. It is visible, Chintan.
Okay, perfect. So thank you. I
कॉन्फ्रेंस चलछि बुझेबी परे
Hello? Hello? My screen visible?
Yes, Chintan, it is visible.
Okay. If this happens again in terms of the technical issues, I'll just request everyone to join, stay logged in, and I'll try and reshare the screen. So, just to give everyone a background, Bloomberg has been in the financial technology industry for close to 40 years, and especially Bloomberg for education for students. We are helping students for more than 20 years in bringing the real world financial experience onto the students' platform with the universities. Right? So what we're going to focus in the first 15 minutes is going to be how Bloomberg is helpful from a student's perspective, a professor's perspective, and the entire university perspective as well. Right? So to begin with, Bloomberg's main benefit is to integrate the theory that the professors, teachers in colleges and universities, and how to integrate that with the real practice, which is also then actually being used by all the key decision makers, right from any bank, which would be JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, UBS, right to the central banks as well, like for example, RBI, the Federal Reserve, and so on. So Bloomberg as a financial technology solution is being used across the world by more than 380,000 people who are Bloomberg users. In Bloomberg for Education, what we do is, especially for students, we provide a certification. It's called BMC, stands for Bloomberg Market Concepts, which is a 10-hour learning certification course that was prepared in conjunction with the CFA Institute, which has 5 main modules around economic indicators, currencies, fixed income, equities. Recently, what we've done is also added portfolio management, commodities, and stock options as the additional modules. So what exactly is BMC and how does this help? Right? Let me show you the Bloomberg screen itself. So this is how the Bloomberg screen looks. Is my terminal visible to everyone?
It is visible, Chintan, yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So BMC, like I mentioned, it is very, very important, especially when students are applying for placements to companies. Companies prefer students who have a BMC certification because a lot of times proficiency in Bloomberg, as soon as they join the corporate sector, is very much needed these days. And this certification sort of acknowledges that basic level on in Bloomberg. The other reason why this is helpful and why institutes, for example, like even IIM Calcutta and a lot of institutes that we've seen have made this compulsory is because when students join an MBA course, they come from very different and diverse backgrounds. Some could come from the science background, some could come from arts, engineering, and so on. So what BMC does is it brings everyone on a level playing field by introducing technical financial markets. Right. So before we get started, BMC is, like I said, an e-learning course. Right now, it's got almost 8 available course modules. So you can see right from economic management to currencies, fixed income, equities, terminal basics, that is how to navigate and use the Bloomberg terminal, to portfolio management, stock options, commodities. Students completing at least 4 modules, which is economic indicators, fixed income, and equities, are awarded a BMC certificate. Right. So what the BMC certificate exactly looks like, if you can see the screen. And this certificate is actually valid. This has got no expiration, and this is also globally accepted. So very, very important for students to have this in their resumes. In terms of course modules, and even how the faculty members can encourage students in completing BMC is it introduces students to all these key modules. So if you see under economic indicators, students will learn about how to monitor GDP, forecasting of GDP as well. Similarly, for currency markets, the relationship between key central banks and currencies in terms of devaluing the currency, or in terms of the currency risk, the forex reserves, what sort of a buffer should a central bank have in order to protect and manage its sovereign currency, is something students will learn under the currency module. Then we have a fixed income module where students can learn about the basics of bond market and bond math, how to basically value a bond, concepts like duration, convexity, the different theorems that we have for price discovery in the bond market. What is the yield curve? Why does an inverted yield curve signal a recession? What are the movements in the yield curve? And how do central bankers who make key decisions around interest rates look at the yield curve and come to those sort of, right? Then there is a 3-hour course on equities, where there is an introduction to the stock market. A lot of students, especially during MBA, are very much interested in the equity research kind of a placement role. So that's also going to be explained under the equity section on how to do relative valuation analysis, DCF, which is discounted cash flow analysis. Also has a ready-made dividend discount model, which is the Gordon growth model for valuation of companies, which I will showcase to you as well. Then there is our on how to actually start using the terminal. So like Professor was mentioned before, Professor Chandrasekhara, that a lot of times, if the students are not trained, they actually start using the terminal by themselves, and it takes a lot of time to them for figuring out which are the important functions to use. So the 2-hour course on getting started to terminal actually shows how to navigate through what is a function, what are the different pages that are available, and so on. The last 3 modules that you see, which is portfolio management, stock options, and commodities, these are very, very new, and these have been introduced in the last 3 months to enrich this curriculum. So a lot of students who want to enter into the buy-side industry, into a portfolio management kind of a role, or work with any of the top buy-side companies or mutual funds, right? For example, there is Motilal Oswal, there is Aditya Birla Capital, then there is DSP BlackRock, then there is UTI Asset Management. All these companies have a Bloomberg terminal on the floor. So if any of the students are interested to be a part of the buy side, then it's imperative that the portfolio management and modules, these sort of modules will help them get into that as well. And recently, we've also introduced a section on commodities because we have realized a lot of times these days when people try and diversify the portfolios, they look at alternatives like investing in gold or investing into other precious metals, base metals. It could be agricultural markets, right? It's also important to have a basic understanding of how a commodity is valued, what are the drivers that basically move the prices in commodities, because price discovery is very, very important in this case, because like equities, which are traded on the markets and in spot as well, commodities we see, they are mostly traded in the futures market, right? And there is very less physical delivery of commodity taking place. So it also gives an introduction into the commodity futures market as well, right? So these are the main course modules. We also have learning outcomes where you can see which or what sort of takeaways you can expect after completing the BMC course. So the first step is, how do I actually come onto this course, right? So it's very simple. In just typing out Bloomberg market concepts, right? So once we type out Bloomberg market concepts or BMC, they will basically be introduced to this page, and you can go through this page in understanding what are the different courses that are available, right? So this is one aspect. And coming back to the presentation, which I was doing before. So what we can do for Pondicherry University is two things. Any professor who is interested in helping their students in their class signing up for this course, what can be done is a professor account guide can be created, and I will share these documents with Shibu sir and circulate it amongst the faculty and the students. So a professor account guide is the first step, which is like creating a professor dashboard wherein the professor will be able to manage and add a class. So there's a section on adding a class and a class code, and that's need to be done by the professor themselves. On the students aspect, this document basically shows the students can create a Bloomberg terminal login account and basically use that class code to sign up for the BMC course, right? So I will share both these documents, with the help of which students will be able to sign in for the BMC course. And this is a very, very useful course, because otherwise, if students in a university who do not have a Bloomberg terminal and want to do this course, there's actually a charge of about $150 per student to do this course. But having access to the Bloomberg terminal, you're freely able to access this course, right? Now, how does it help is coming back to the presentation. So this is how a professor will look like, right? Where the professor will be able to see the students that have registered for the course and which are the modules that they have completed. A certificate of completion is also that is being provided to the students, which is a lifetime certification. It has no expiry date, and it is globally accepted, not just in India, but around the world. What is then also helpful is, once this is completed, the student can also use that BMC completion link onto their LinkedIn profiles. So what we've seen is a lot of companies these days, when they analyze students' resume and look at CVs, when they see keywords like BMC certification, those get picked up, and those also be highlighted on each student's LinkedIn profiles as well. So any student who does not have a LinkedIn profile, I would recommend to have one, complete the BMC certification, and put that link into the LinkedIn profile as well, which is useful. After this, Bloomberg as a terminal, it basically offers the faculty members to integrate Bloomberg into the course curriculum. So there are disciplines around economics, finance, management as well, and a lot of other course offerings in terms of advanced portfolio, investment banking, money markets, right? All of this can be looked after through the Bloomberg terminal. So the way that we have seen is how some colleges use the Bloomberg lab is basically they have a class assessment or a course assessment wherein various percentages of marks have been assigned. So they also include Bloomberg as BMC course as one of the assessments and the associated learning outcomes for this, right? Apart from this, the professors can also do like a course curriculum mapping, wherein if, for example, a professor is teaching a module on fixed income, or if they are macroeconomic analysis, or if they are using, say, risk and return. So all of this can be also mapped with the BMC module that you can see here, right? So this can be mapped with the BMC module as well, right? Give me 1 second. Yeah. And in terms of the Bloomberg academic program and the coverage, it's across asset classes. So if you're looking at equities, if you're looking at fixed income, if it is money markets, if it is commodities, Bloomberg has coverage all across the world, across the asset classes, and it's a real-time market intelligence platform, right? If we talk about advanced concepts like derivatives, 90% of the entire derivative volume that is electronically traded through a financial technology company, 90% actually flows through Bloomberg. So Bloomberg also has a very, very close relationship with the market regulators, and more than 90% of the derivative market volume in India is actually flowing through the Bloomberg terminal in terms of financial technology and electronic trading, right? And apart from that, like I mentioned, it has data on currencies, economic analysis. Bloomberg is also easily integrated into Excel. There's also a lot of charting and technical analysis, because a lot of students these days we see, apart from fundamental internships, they also do internships with companies into technical analysis. So those kind of studies are also readily available on the Bloomberg terminal, which I will take you through, and a lot of other things. So actually delving deep into how Bloomberg is helpful, let me just switch back to the terminal itself. So if you can see my screen, right, this is the Bloomberg terminal. So once a login ID and password has been created, this is the home page. And as you can see, there is a blue rectangle box or a command line at the top, which you can use to search for information and to search for research as well. So anything that you need to search on Bloomberg can be done through the blue command line at the top, right? Say, for example, I am looking about an information on Reliance. So I can simply type in Reliance, and as you see, there is a drop down that automatically comes up, right? There's a functions section and there is a section under securities. So what we are interested in is to look at the company itself. So to select Reliance Industries, and as soon as I click on Reliance Industries, the option there, I see this menu page that comes up, right? So the menu page is basically telling me that if I want to look at description, DES is the shortcut. If I want to plot the chart of Reliance's share price, GP is the function or the shortcut. But as you see, you don't have to remember these shortcuts. The more and more you start using the Bloomberg terminal, these shortcuts will be remembered by you. Right now, if I want to look at the description, I simply click on security description, DES, here. So once I click into description, I'm able to see the description of Reliance, right? So what does the company do? Basically manufactures petrochemicals, synthetic fibers, textiles. It's also into petroleum refining and has recently launched Reliance Geo. So I can read the entire information here. I can also see there is some data available on the market information, where to be and so on. So this is the entire company description. What does the company do? What are its operations? What is the geographical reach of the company? And what has been the recent financial performance of the company? Also, there is information on what is the strategy of the company going forward. So as we know, in case of Reliance, it is trying to move out of the oil and gas sector as much as possible and is trying to invest in alternative areas like telecom with Reliance Jio. Then there is Reliance India Mart, which is it's a food grocery store. So it's trying to reduce its reliance on actually the oil and gas sector, since it's very volatile. And so that is the information that you can see. Then there is a section on corporate information and so on. If I click into issue info, I am basically able to see what is the current shareholding of a company. So in Reliance, who are the foreign holders? How much is the promoter holding themselves? How much is the domestic shareholding? And who are the top holders? Right? So say for example, if I click into top holders, and all these are links, by the way. So if you click into any link, you're able to see more and more information. So for example, if I click into top holders, I'm able to see all the top institutional and insider holders who are holding this stock, right? What is the position that they are holding? How much is the percentage they are holding, and so on, right? And I can look at the insider transactions as well, which means basically when has the promoter family bought or sold the stock. So if I click into table, I'm able to see all the insider transactions taking place in the company. So this is very self-explanatory in terms of the links that you click will take you to those relevant pages. What is interesting to see is under company analysis, we have a section on financial analysis, which is actually looking at the data for Reliance. Okay. So if I click into financial analysis here, I am basically able to see all the three statements that the company has published, which is the income statement, the balance sheet, and the cash flow. There is also a tab on key statistics, which shows you all the important statistics for a company, which could be in terms of market cap, enterprise value, EBITDA, and so on. Say, for example, I click into statement. So once I click into income statement, if you see, there is a section called as reported and gap. As reported is basically the data that is reported by the company itself, as it's in the annual report. The gap section is also the same annual report numbers, but they are basically adjusted in a template, which makes for a very easy comparison. So say, for example, if you're comparing two companies in oil and gas sector, so it could be Reliance, it could be BPCL, right? So the gap template basically makes it for a apples to apples comparison, and the data fields are standardized, right? So this data is completely transparent in the sense, if I click into any revenue number, hence if I see, this is the revenue number, and if I drill down in the revenue, I can see how the revenue number is actually coming 5967. If I click on this source document here, which is for document transparency, this will actually take me to the annual report. It will highlight this number and the page from where this number was picked up, right? So say, for example, Reliance's annual report has more than 200 pages. So it's not very much simple for you to go to the annual report and extract that information. So using or just clicking on this button will actually take you to the page from where this number was picked up. So that is in terms of the transparency, and in terms of data that we have on income sheet, balance sheet, and cash flow. What we also have is ready-made templates which are available on ratios, right? So if I click into ratios, I'm able to see the financial data for the company in terms of profitability, growth, the credit. Say, for example, liquidity ratios, or I can do a DuPont analysis as well. So all I do is once I have the company that is loaded, change the accounting standard from consolidated to parent, whichever the preference is. We can set the number of annual periods or the quarterly periods for which we need the data. Say, for example, I need the data for the last 20 years, right? Or the last 20 quarters, in fact. So I can simply do 20 and I can select annual 2 quarters. And you will see now I'm able to see the quarterly data for Reliance. Okay. Switching this back to annual, this is the profitability template where it shows you ratios like return on common equity, return on assets, what are the margins, what is the tax rate. If I click DuPont analysis, this is basically showing me the 5-factor DuPont model, broken down by asset turnover, leverage, operating margin, tax burden, and so on, right? And you're able to see what is the ROE and the payout ratio to get to a sustainable growth rate, which can then be used in the discounted cash flow models that the students might want to build when they are trying to do equity valuation of a company, right? So this is in terms of financial data. What we also have is segmental data, wherein you're able to see the revenue that is coming in from different geographies. In the case of Reliance, the exposure of a company to the Indian market, to the markets outside India. You're also able to see the revenue breakdown by segments as well. So Reliance has broad refining, petrochemicals, crude petroleum, oil and gas, organized retail sector, digital services in the form of geo financial services, and so on. So what is the revenue exposure of Reliance from all of its underlying segments? In addition to this, there's also additional data, because for an industry like oil and gas, there are some industry specific metrics that people look at. Say, for example, what are the level of reserves, or what is the gas reserve, what is the benchmark that is being used. Let's also come up with the Reliance Geo platform. So what are the number of subscribers for Reliance Geo, right? So that sort of information can be captured through this page. For professors who are data and who are looking at governance metrics, Bloomberg also has a tab for ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, and it's broken down between all three segments. So this is a overview page, but if I drill down into each of these specific metrics, I'm able to see, for example, in the case of governance, what is the board structure of the company? How many employees are there in the company? What is the level of board independence, which is measured by the number of independent directors who are sitting on the board, right? What is the level of diversity in the company? Does it have a proper number of women on the board? And what are the number of key female executive officers in the company in terms of diversity as well? How many board meetings are taking place? What is the size of the audit committee? And so on. So all of this ESG metrics can be captured from this page. And also there is data available on executive and director compensation, right? So that is mostly to do with the financial data of the company. So just to this is the blue box that I see at the top. I can simply type in Reliance. Or let me actually change this example to say Infosys. Type in Infosys. You can select the company ticker. Then this menu page that comes up where I can click into. See, there are a lot of other things available as well. So if you are interested in research and estimates, you can basically click here, which will take you to a lot of on things. If I'm interested in, say, for example, financial analysis for Infosys, simply click into that page, and that gets me to this page, which I was what is also interesting is in terms of company is actually performing better or worse compared to its competition. So for that, if you simply type in something like relative valuation, right, there is a page that is called RV, which stands for relative valuation, and clicking into this page will get you to this particular template, wherein I'm looking at Infosys. On the top, I can see what is the breakdown in terms of revenue for Infosys. So 67% of the revenue is coming from IT services, 33% is coming from application software. In terms of its key competitors, so I've chosen Wipro, HCL, TCS as some of the key IT companies who are competitor for Infosys. But if you want to pick and choose companies, you can do that as well. So all you have to do is basically click on the pencil button that you see at the top here. Once you click into the pencil button, you can simply start adding companies here, right? So say, for example, if I'm looking at Emphasis, right, which is another, say, IT company, I can just type in Emphasis, select the ticker from here, and I can load the company. Or say, for example, if I'm looking at Mindtree, simply search for the company, load the ticker, and click on Save. Clicking on Save and then just going back, that those companies are added here in your template. Now, this template is basically doing like a cross-section analysis of which are the key competitors of a company and how are they performing on a range of metrics. So this overview template is showing us market cap, price change, what is the P ratio, and so on. But if you see, there are other sample sheets which are readily available. So if I click into costs, there is a sub-template called equity valuation, where I can see some of the key columns related to valuation multiples like EV to EBITDA, price to earnings, and so on. Then there is a template on profitability, which shows us those kind of ratios. In case if you want to add in your own set of template, or if you want to create a template from scratch, I can basically click into custom and I can search for the field that I'm looking for. So say, for example, if I'm looking for return on equity, I can simply type in ROE, select return on common equity from here, and I can select the year for which I need this metric. So say I need this metric for the year 2020. I can basically click on customize period, and I can change this to fiscal year 2020 and click on update. Right? As soon as I do that, I can see I get the ROE for 2020. You can basically create your own template in this fashion, and if you want, you can then export this into Excel as well. Right? So this is in terms of fundamental data. In terms of looking at estimates for a company, we can basically search by looking at earnings and estimates, or just simply typing earnings in the command line at the top, and you will see there is a section called EE, which is earnings and estimates. Right? So this page basically tells us when is the next company announcement going to be, what is the current trailing 12-month PE ratio, and in terms of the analysts who are covering this particular company, what is the recommendation. So a lot of you, once you pass out from college, and if you get into, say, an equity research role with any of the sell-side companies, so it could be JP Morgan, it could be, say, for example, Centrum Broking, it could be Edelweiss, it could be Kotak Securities. So all of these companies will have a research analyst. So this tells us that currently there are about 45 people or 45 research analysts, which is 40 plus 4 plus 1, who are covering Infosys, out of which 40 are suggesting to buy Infosys, 4 are suggesting to hold, and 1 is recommending a sell. What is the price of Infosys, it's actually 1126 right now. And what is the target price of Infosys, right? For the next, the section below is actually showing us when we compare Infosys with the competitors that we discussed before, how has the performance of the company been on some of these metrics like EPS, revenue, and so on, right? Then say, for example, if I into consensus overview, I can basically see what are the estimates of Infosys. So what is the FY21 EPS estimate? What is the FY22 EPS estimate, right? So that information can also be seen here. So for students who are actually building an equity valuation model, they will need to know what is the projection of the growth rate that is being to the company. Into growth and able to see at what pace will the growth of EPS take place over the next 3 years, right? I can also go back to this page, which is ANR, which is analyst coverage. What this is telling us is basically all the brokers or all the analysts from sell side who are covering Infosys, right? So these are some of the companies that actually come for placements. So it could be Macquarie, it could be Investec, JP Morgan, HDFC. So these are the companies which are covering this stock, analysts who are covering the stock within this company, and what is the recommendation in terms of buy and sell, what is the target price, and so on, right? So you're able to see all of this information through the analyst recommendation page. If you want to get to this page directly, we can simply type in analyst recommendation, and you see there is a page called ANR, which stands for analyst recommendations, right? And that gets us to this very simple page. Okay. Also, what is helpful to understand in terms of equity valuation is what is the cost of equity and the cost of debt currently for Infosys, right? For this particular question, this page called WACC, which is weighted average cost of capital. So if I simply type in WACC, or if you by weighted average cost of capital, you will get to this page that shows you the breakdown between cost of debt and cost of equity, right? So currently the weight of equity is about 99%. Debt is only 1% because Infosys is an IT company. IT companies generally have a very low debt. What is the cost of equity and cost of debt, and what is the WACC? This is the number that you can use, 10.4% as the discount rate in order to come to a fair value for the company, right? If I click into this, I can basically also modify some of the assumptions here. So let's say, for example, if the assumption for a long-term debt is taken as 5.85%, which basically means the loan that Infosys has taken, it is basically taken at 5.85%, but you think going forward it might increase. You want to change this to say 6%, we can make the change here, and you see the cost of debt will actually change from 5.69 to 5.72, right? And you click on update and you will get the new cost of capital. So the WACC page is also very, very important. What is also important is to understand what is the beta of the company, right? For a capital asset pricing model, for which we specially have a page called beta. So if you simply type in beta here, you can see the raw beta and the adjusted beta as well. So currently, you don't have to actually run, regression analysis in Excel, but we do this directly on the terminal, wherein we can put in the company ticker, we can put in the benchmark. So either we can take Sensex or Nifty as the benchmark here, select the date for which you need to run the regression. So by default, it will run on a 2-year weekly basis. But say if you want to on a 5-year frequency, I can basically change this 2018 to 2015. So from 2015 to 2020, on a weekly basis, I want to know what is the beta of Infosys. And for students who are not much familiar with this concept, what is beta is basically, you can think of this as a sensitivity in the stock price. So say for example, if the market increases by 1% and if the company beta is say 1.2, it basically means if the market increases from 100 to 110, the stock will increase from 100 to 120, right? So in this case, the beta for Infosys is about 0.8, right? So if the market increases from 100 to 110, Infosys will increase from 100 to 108, right? So that is a raw sense of understanding the concept of beta. And how it is useful is basically in order to derive at the weighted average cost of capital, we basically have to use the beta and multiply that with the market, right? And if students are looking at market premiums, we specifically have a function which is called as country risk premium, right? Again, very, very important for students to realize this when they are looking at risk premiums across not just India, but across the world. So if I simply do country risk premium, or if I type in CRP, right, which is a short abbreviation for country risk premium, I get to this page, which basically tells me what is the risk premium for any country in the world, right? So if I look at India, right now in India, the risk premium is about 5.8%. Okay, so again, very important page in order to understand and in order to see what is the risk premium from an equity valuation perspective. One last function before we move on to understanding economics and economic data sets on Bloomberg, which is again very powerful. One last function is how do we understand what is the dividend discount model, right? So if I simply type in DDM, which is an abbreviation for dividend discount model, Bloomberg already has created this model for you, right? So students do not need to build massive Excel sheets in order to get this data. The way this is being done is after you put in the model assumptions, for which I showed you pages like earnings, estimates, and so on. And after your own analysis, once you put in the assumptions here, what is the growth here? What is the transitional here? What is the premium? What is the so all of this can be fetched through the different functions that we saw, right? You're able to change this. So if you think going ahead, the risk in Infosys is going to increase. So I would assign it a beta of say 0.85 instead of 0.79. I can basically change this and I can quickly understand and see what is the theoretical value for Infosys right now, right? What is the implied growth rate? What is the expected return? So these are some of the ready-made available models that we have that can be utilized. Okay. Now coming to the economic markets and the sort of data sets especially will be useful if you want to understand the Indian economy and how the Indian economy is progressed with the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. We saw the economic growth actually sinking to about negative 24% before 2 quarters. In the last month, the economy about 7-8%, right, which was a little better than what most of the economists expected. So how do you make sense of how the economy is going to shape up in the future? Or how do you make sense of how much has the lockdown contributed to reduce economic growth, and how fast with lifting of these lockdown measures will the economic recovery look like, right? So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes in a very interesting topic on how to analyze the economic scenario for India and what is in store ahead. And a lot of times these conversations can also be a part of your placement week as well, that you can, speak about it to the potential employer and demonstrate to them how you make sense of this analysis. So we have a lot of good research that is available for economics, right? So let me begin by showing you this page on the treasury market. Right. So if I type in treasury market, there is a page called BTMM. Now what BTMM tells us in real time, if I change this United States to India, right, I can see for India in one quick glance, what is the India repo rate, which is at 4%. What is the current reserve ratio, which is at 3%? What is the SLR rate? How are the stock markets doing today? So BSE has increased points, NSE has increased by about 20 points. What are the prices of oil in the market? What is the current exchange rate that's going on in the market? So all the important market related information can be captured through this page. Okay. What you see below is a section on economic releases. So if I click into this link, I can basically see in the next 1 week, which is from the 3rd of December to the 10th of December, what are the key economic releases that are going to take place. And you can look at it in a more futuristic history, or you can look at it historically as well. So say, for example, if I look at this from the 18th of November, right? So if I look at this from the 18th of November, a lot of you might have noticed that the GDP number for India was released on the 27th of November, right? And it actually came to negative 7.5%, right? And like I just mentioned, the previous number was negative 23.9%. So there has been a good recovery, I would say, in the market, especially because the survey number or what the consensus number was actually negative 8.2%. So most of the economists, and when I say economists, it includes major banks like Bank of America, JP Morgan, the local economists, the domestic economists. We also have a Bloomberg economist. His name is Abhishek Gupta, who is passed out from Johns Hopkins University, has completed his PhD there, and has worked at Merrill Lynch before, and is currently with Bloomberg, covering Bloomberg economics from an Indian perspective. So a consensus of all those numbers suggested that the economy GDP will be about negative 8.2, but there was a pleasant surprise when it came to about 7.5, right? So if I click into this number, okay, I'm able to see all of these details here. And say, for example, I then click into the number here, I can see where the Indian economy was and how it has come down drastically due to the pandemic situation, right? And if you see, this number is actually released by Central Statistics of India, the CSO office, and you can see more news that is available in the section below, right? So if I click into this one, which says India's reforms to unleash recovery, I can basically look at the 2021 outlook, which is again very important, because if someone asks you maybe during placements or during a project, what is your outlook or what is your sense of how the Indian economy is going to do in 2021? This basic summary of about 3 pages tells us what is the forecast for the Indian economy. So if I click into India, I can see that the Indian economy is actually getting bogged down by a lack of fiscal stimulus, a delay in monetary easing and fresh headwinds to exports. However, the good news is that the government is focused on structural reforms, and there should be a comeback in April 2021. And what is the GDP expectation like? Okay, so you're able to see this information through this page. What is also helpful to understand is what are the key economic indicators and how to get the economic data for India, right? For this, we have a page which is called as World Economic Statistics. So if I type in World Economic Statistics, I see there is a page called ECST. Okay, so on the ECST page, what I am able to see is all the information that is important for the Indian market. Now, it could be in terms of national accounts, which basically means GDP. It could be consumer prices, which is CPI. It could be something like international trade and balance of payments. So what is the external debt of the Indian government, right? What is the foreign investment that's coming into India? And so, right, in terms of what is the foreign direct investment, what is the foreign portfolio investment, what is the government debt looking like in terms of the monetary sectors, how does the balance sheet of the RBI look like, what are the bank reserve ratios, what is the liquidity that is available with the Reserve Bank. So in case if there is a need for an emergency injection into the Indian market, how much is the buffer that is available with the RBI? So all of this information in terms of demographics, indicators, industrial sector, services sector, retail and wholesale sector, and so on, can be captured through this page, right? So if you click into any section here, you're able to see all of this through this page and so on. Right, so this is the World Statistics page showing us the data. Say, for example, I wanted to look at forecast data. So we know what is the history, but how do we know what is going to happen in the future? What is the expected CPI number? What is the expected GDP number, right? Because it's very important to have a sense of what the expectation is. Only then we can compare when the actual number is out, whether it has performed better or worse than our expectation. So for this reason, there is this page called Economic Forecast, right? And if I go into Economic Forecast, I can basically see in terms of economic activity, which is captured by, say, GDP and industrial production, what is the forecast for 2020, 2021, and 2022, and how the historical numbers have been. With the availability of current data, right, I can see in the case of India, also what is the probability of a recession. So if you have been following news recently, the RBI, when it came out with the number of negative 7.5%, it also meant that India is into a technical recession right now, right? So given the forecast, what is the probability of a recession going ahead? It's about 90% in India. And if you click into any number here, say for example, if I click into real GDP, okay, I am able to see which are the contributors who are contributing to this forecast. So how do we get to know that in FY21 the economy will be negative 9%? Is because BNK Securities, Bank of Nova Scotia, Barclays, Bloomberg Economics, Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, all of these major banks have given the forecast. And on the consensus of this forecast, we come to this negative 9% as the median for the Indian economy growth, right? So not just GDP, if you see there is also expectation on what is the central bank rate going to be. So like we saw, the current repo rate is 4%. It is expected in order to support the economy the Reserve Bank of India will also do further monetary easing, at least in the short term. So if I change this to quarterly, I'm able to see that there is going to be some sort of easing in the market, where the repo rate could be cut even more before they start the tightening cycle again in FY22, right? What is the expectation of the USD INR rate? So that is also something that I'm able to capture through this page. Okay. And since we are on this topic of economy and the exchange rate, it's also very important to know how the Indian currency has been performing, right, against a basket of currencies. So what we have in terms of analytics is this page called World Currency Ranker, right, or WCRS. So the World Currency Ranker is now telling us that if I select, say, for example, the G10 basket, or let me select the Asia basket, for example. So in the entire of Asia, as compared to US, what has the performance of currencies been? So if you see, very interestingly, from in the last 1 year, which is from the 3rd of December 2019 to the 3rd of December 2020, which is today, the Indian rupee has been the worst performing currency. It's actually declined by -3%. And the best performing currency has been the South Korean currency. So this is basically doing a ranking on the basis of a particular basket. In this case, I have selected Asia, but I can change this to major currencies in the world, or I can change this to all the countries and see how the currency performance has been across, right? Right now, what we're looking at is, if I look at major currencies, the Swedish krona has been the best performing currency, whereas the Brazilian real has actually declined -19% as compared to the USD. So this is only in the terms of spot rate. This can also be analyzed in the terms of interest rate and total return. And you can also see the volatility as well. What has been the historical volatility of a currency? It was also very important to understand what is the fluctuation, and in which cases does the Reserve Bank need to intervene in order to manage that fluctuation in currency. So those sort of analytics can be derived through this page. So it tells us a lot about purchasing power, carry trade, and economics as well. What has the unemployment been like? So if I look at Asia, for example, or let me select major currencies. This is basically showing us the unemployment rate. In the US, the unemployment rate is about 6.9%, right? Japan has the lowest unemployment rate, about 3%. So a lot of good information can be derived through this page. What's also very helpful is, apart from all of this analytics, right, in terms of research, we have a platform on Bloomberg, which is called as Bloomberg Intelligence. Okay. So please pay attention to this, because it's very, very insightful. And the sort of information that you can get through this page is actually unparalleled, right? So if I look at Bloomberg Intelligence, the shortcut is BI. So what happens is, Bloomberg also has in-house analysts who cover a lot of sectors and industries. And these analysts have been covering the markets for more than 10 years or more than a decade, right? So if you want to read about research on any particular industry or any particular region, you can basically come to the BI page. Very, very interesting research which is published here, right? So for example, if you're following the current news, there has been some news regarding Tesla and China, right, in terms of electronic vehicles. So this piece of research is written by Steve Mann, who is a Bloomberg intelligence analyst covering the automobile industry, and actually read it tells us information on Tesla and the China market. So Tesla, Volkswagen, these two brands have come up with competitive pricing strategies, which can even have a greater rivalry in the China's electric vehicle market in 2021 with the launch of new SUVs, right? So this actually breaks down what are the models, what is the push that could be needed to lift the automobile sales, what is the regulatory environment looking like, and so on. So very crisp, one page of research that you can quickly consume through this page, right? Say, for example, if you're only interested in India, you can simply just type in India here, and you can look at the research that comes up for the Indian markets, right? So if I type in India and just hit enter, I will be able to see the research that comes up for the Indian markets. The India Insight is actually very good if you want to read about this, wherein we've basically developed a GDP tracker, which tracks the economic recovery. So like I mentioned before, Abhishek Gupta is the Bloomberg economist for India, and he's worked with DSP Merrill Lynch, and has also worked with the National Institute of Public Finance, which is India's topmost macro finance think tank. And he's also completed his PhD from Johns Hopkins University. Tells us India's economic recovery could see a pickup in momentum in the month of October, because as we know, the GDP is a lagging indicator, which is 3 months afterwards, the real economy has actually performed. So this mentions the India GDP growth tracker that you can see. And what we've also done recently is developed a high frequency dashboard. So like I mentioned before, since GDP is a lagging indicator and not leading, it doesn't tell us how the future is going to look like, right? Before the economic event already taking place. So in order to have a better sense of understanding on how this can be done, is we have developed this page called India High Frequency Data Dashboard. And if I click into this, what we are doing here is measuring the economic performance on a weekly basis. If you see, it's basically divided into 3 sections. There is virus, there is the real economy, and there is the financial markets. So if I talk about virus, you will see the active cases were actually declining until the 1st of November, which is highlighted in green. But since then, there has been a pickup. And if I speak about Mumbai, right, where I'm actually based out of, there have been a few restrictions in terms of the incoming flights which are coming to Mumbai. So it also tells us what is the lockdown index stringency. So in September, it was about 75%. So the lockdown was still there. But as and when the time is passing by, the lockdown stringency index has actually come down from 75 to 61, right? In terms of the real economy, and since we all follow the markets, we all understand that the stock markets have actually performed very well in the last 3 months, but the real economy is still struggling, and people are still facing a lot of difficulties, especially people who are daily wage earners and laborers. So how actually is the real economy performing? So that is captured by some of very interesting metrics. When I say power demand, it is basically the power demand which is published by the Ministry of Power from the Indian government on what is the demand of power by the Indian households. Then there is something called as the congestion index, which is published by a technology company called TomTom, which basically measures what is the traffic congestion in key metro cities, right? Then there is flight departures, which is showing us if there are more number of departures taking place means things are getting back to normal. So this sort of tells us how the trajectory has been in terms of the real economy and these indicators. And of course, the last section, which is the financial markets, is actually showing us the Nifty index, the risk premium, which we discussed before, and what is the banking liquidity in the system looking like. Okay. So basically, just to summarize, what we've covered up until now is a good amount of information on the equity markets, which is equity valuation, equity research, country risk premium, beta, weighted average cost of capital, earnings and estimates. Then we saw how to use some of the functions related to economics and how to get economic data, how to know what are the economic events that are coming up, and so on. Then we discussed a couple of functions related to the currency markets, how to track the currency performance, what is carry trade, which is the best performing currency, and so on. And lastly, we saw the page on Bloomberg Intelligence, which is showing us how to consume research and how to read these research reports, right? So now I just shift gears a little bit and talk about news, because as you know, Bloomberg is the gold standard when it comes to news consumption, because Bloomberg collects news from over 180,000 sources across the world, right? So it's very, very important on how will you access news. So I'll just share with you a couple of key pages. One is, of course, this page called Top, which stands for Top News, right? So anything that is breaking in the market across the world can be seen through this particular page when we go to Top News, and you're able to see all the breaking news stories here. You click into them. For example, how Donald Trump is still imposing more and more sanctions on China just before the president-elect Joe Biden is supposed to take over, right, in January. So if you want to read that research or that news story, basically come to this page. So this is one aspect in terms of consuming news. The other aspect is company-specific news. So if there's a particular company that we're tracking, how do we get information about that? So for that, we have this page called, so if I load a company, say for example, Infosys, I hit enter. I can come to this page called company news. So all I do is simply type in company news, and I can go to this page called CN, which stands for individual company news. And this tells me with Infosys, what is the news that is coming out in the market. And I can simply click into it to read more and more news stories on Infosys. And I can also set the time range for which I want to look at this news story, right? So just coming back to that page of CN, I can basically set the time range here and from which sources do I want to consume the news. And you can basically get the news from all of those sources. Now, what Bloomberg has also done is we have made the system very much intuitive and user-friendly, right? So for example, say some of you might be using the Bloomberg system for the very first time. So you may not know what CN stands for, or you may not know that I actually typed in company news, right? And then I got to that page. So what we have done is a lot of investment into artificial intelligence and machine learning, and try to make the system as much Google-like as possible. So how, when we go to Google browser, we search for any information that we need, and we directly see the results coming in, correct? Similarly, if I want to see news, say about Infosys and Reliance, all I can do is type something like news on Infosys and Reliance, right? And I can say last week. Okay, so I want to only see news for Infosys and Reliance in the last week. So if I do this, or type something like this, I can basically see news for Infosys and Reliance, and it automatically picks up the last week, and I can click into the news story this way, right? And read about this, which is coming from the financial press. The other thing that you can do with this natural language processing is also charting. So say if I want to chart a share price, I can simply say chart Infosys price for 2 years, right? So if you see, automatically from December 2018 till today, it is showing us the Infosys stock price for 2 years. So this is very useful. Or say for example, do something like chart Nifty 2-year price change on a month-on-month basis and show us a bar chart, basically meaning a histogram. So if I do something like this, it tells me on a month-on-month basis what has been the performance of Nifty look like. So as we all know, in March, as the pandemic hit us, the markets dropped massively, and the net one-day price change was about 2,600 points. But in the last couple of months, there's been a very good recovery in the financial markets that you can see through here. So what I'm trying to tell in summary is there's a lot of natural language capability which is available on the Bloomberg terminal, where we don't have to actually rely on this page. Because otherwise, if I wanted to get to this page, I had to first type in chart, and then I would understand that this is actually a line chart. So GP is the page for a line chart, right? And I can see the line chart of this particular index. For students and faculty members who are particularly interested in technical analysis, what we can do is through this line chart of technical indicators available as well. So if I click into edit chart, I can basically search for, say, an indicator like RSI, which is like relative strength index, and I can put in the study here. I can basically plot the RSI that you see has come in the third panel of the screen, right? So how do we analyze this indicator? Basically is if the RSI is around a range of 30, it basically means that the company is oversold and there is a chance of reversal. The stock price will increase. And an RSI value of about 70 tells us that the company is overbought and there's a chance of a decline in the share price. So if you see, for example, whenever the RSI has actually touched the range of 70, the share price of the Nifty index has come down. Or if the has actually been sold quite a lot and there is a chance of a reversal, the Nifty index has actually increased. If you see in this particular period, right, around the 9th of November, the Nifty index went above 70 and it stayed there for quite some time, and it is still above 70, which is very much unprecedented because historically, whenever it touches a mark of 70, it falls. But this is taking place because it's very similar to what we saw after the 2008 financial crisis. So if you remember what happened after 2008 financial crisis, was that in order for the economy to recover, a lot of central banks around the world started this process of quantitative easing, wherein they pumped money into the markets, right? So something very similar is happening with the world markets right now, wherein if you see in the last week, there was an announcement from wherein they are thinking to pump in about $908 billion into the markets. So when this kind of liquidity is flushed into the market, you will see that the markets are actually remaining in the overbought territory for quite some time. So there are a bunch of technical indicators that we have for students who want to do internships or who want to actually are interested in trading quite a lot. You can go to this page called Technical Analysis on Bloomberg, right? And we have a page which is called as TECH actually, right? So TECH is basically a technical study browser wherein some of the most commonly used technical indicators like say Bollinger Bands or candle patterns or moving average convergence divergence. Also students who are actually taking up CFA as a course will be familiar with some of these indicators. So in order to understand more of this and in order to understand how this actually applied to the market, if I click into Bollinger Bands, it tells me what the study is. First of all, it shows me what the calculation is, how the Bollinger Band is actually derived, and what it means. And it's an entire document that is published on Bollinger Bands. So I would recommend anyone who is interested in technical analysis can basically come to this page called TECH, right? And do this analysis on this page and learn more about some of the key technical indicators that are available in terms of candlestick patterns, Ichimoku, rate of change studies, and so on. All right. For students who are interested in entering the asset management space, I would say, which could very well be like a mutual fund. Say for example, if it is you're trying to get into DSP, BlackRock, or Aditya Birla, trying to get into Kotak Securities, right? That people invest in. So if you wanted to have data on this, we basically have something called as a fund map. Okay, so there's a function which is called as fmap, which tells us. Let me select India as a region. Right, so I can simply type in India, select India as a region. Okay, and now what this is telling us is that in the Indian markets, there are about these many funds which are open-ended. There are 158 close-ended funds. There are 96 ETFs and so on. So if I click into open-ended funds, right, I'm able to see all of the funds that are available in the open-ended market and how the performance has been. So I can quickly see ICICI Prudential Fund has given the highest return of 34%. So if someone had invested, say, 100 rupees last year, it would have increased to 134 rupees. So this basically tells us how to see which are the funds that are available in the market, and you can view them by objective, which basically means every fund will have an objective style. So in the Indian markets, it could be an equity fund, it could be a fixed income fund, which invests into government securities, or it invests into corporate debt of very good companies like, for example, Reliance. Then there's a money market fund and so on. So if I click into equity, I'm able to see the breakup of equity. So there is a blended broad market type of a category. There is a growth mid-cap category. There is a foreign blend category and so on. And if I click into the chart here, I'm able to further narrow this down and see under the blended broad category the type of funds which are available that you can invest in, right? Because this is also somewhere related to financial planning, wherein the students, as they land a corporate job and when they start getting, the first salary, it's always a very good practice to save a certain amount of it, which could be invested in various avenues, funds, and starting systematic investment plan or SIP could be one of those avenues. And if you wanted to understand the financial market, if you wanted to understand which are the best performing funds, where can you invest in, then this is the page that you can come to, right? That is mostly what I wanted to cover from my side. Just two things before we conclude the session for today is I'm sure a lot of you have spent the last 80 minutes listening to the things that I've spoken about. But sometimes it's very difficult to then go back and remember some of the functions which I must load and so on. So everyone can make a note of these two pages. One is called BPS, which stands for Bloomberg Resource Center, right? Wherein what is cheat sheets. So if I go into equities, for example, I can go into a cheat sheet and I can go into equity analyst. Now this tells me all of the important functions that an equity analyst will use. Okay, so for example, I mentioned, if you remember, by which you can track the top news stories. Then a lot of other functions that we discussed, right? ECO, for example, ECFC, relative valuation, and so on. So if you want to remember all of this, you can basically go to, I'll just repeat that for everyone, go to BPS, which is Bloomberg Resource Center. Under BPS, if you're interested in equities, you can click into equities and go into cheat sheets to understand the equity analyst cheat sheet. Okay. The other page that we have, user, which stands for functions that a particular player will use. So as you pass out of the college, you might be targeting different roles, right? Someone wants to become an equity analyst. Someone might be targeting to become a credit analyst. Someone would want to, stay back, do PhD, or become an economist, and so on. So what this helps us to do is, if I go to user, I can select a market player. Say, for example, I select economist, and then this tells me under different categories, if I do data/news monitoring, what are the important functions that I need to look at? Generation, what are the important functions that I need to look at? So something like ECFC or BI that we discussed today. Then if I look into monitoring, there's something called as BRIE, which is like a Bloomberg newsletter that gets delivered to you. If I type in BRIE, and if I click into, you can subscribe to economics, and then whenever there is a newsletter, that will get delivered to you, right? So these are some of the ways that you can remember these functionalities. Apart from that, we have a 24/7 help desk as well, wherein students can write in their queries, and if they are stuck at some project, or if they are stuck not which function to use, they can write into the Bloomberg help desk, which is edu.net. I'll share the email with Professor Shekhar, circulated to the students, and basically you can be responded within 24 hours. Right? So that is mostly what I wanted to cover for today's session. Any questions so far? We can open it up for Q&A before we conclude. So any questions? You can write them into the chat box, or you can shout out.
Dear participants, if you have any questions one by one, you can ask. Of course, Mr. Chintan actually let us one by one. Hello, Mr. Participants, all participants, if you have any question, please use the time actually to discuss, so that we will be able to actually sort out all the doubts you have. Mr. Chintan,
Sure. So someone asked. Sure. So someone asked. Okay, I'll answer them one by one. So the first, I think Yusuf asked, can you show how the Excel plugin will work with Bloomberg? Definitely. So what can be done is, let me just share my screen. 1 second. Is my screen coming through? Are you able to see?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, your screen is visible, no problem.
Yeah. So there are two things that you can do for getting data into Excel. Say, for example, if I'm at the FA page, which is financial analysis, what I can basically do is export this data into Excel as a template. Or if you want to create your own template in Excel using Bloomberg formulas, you can do that as well, right? So if I have the Excel this way, if you can see the Excel attachment here, we have something called as the spreadsheet builder. It will help you to build a template in Excel. So if I click into spreadsheet builder, I can basically look at any information that I need. So there's a Bloomberg add-in which is available when you launch the Excel file, right? And if I open the spreadsheet builder this way, say for example, I am looking at a historical data. So I click into historical data table, click into next. And say for example, I am looking at Infosys. So we type in the company name here, right? Select the ticker, click into next, and look for the field that you need. So say for example, if you need the price, so just simply type in price and then select the relevant field from here. Okay, say for example, if you're typing in, we type in volume, right? Click into next and then simply hit into next and finish. So if you do this, you will see that you will get the data in Excel historically for the volume of Infosys, right? So this way the Excel add-in is very helpful to make a template in Excel. Of course, if there is a lot of requirement from students in wanting to understand this, we can have a separate session at some point to discuss the Excel features. But to answer your question, the add-in is very much available and it can be used in this fashion. Coming on to the next question is, how could we, the students, register for the BMC course, right? So for the BMC course, the first step is I will share a couple of documents with Professor Shibu, and the students will first need to create a Bloomberg login ID and password. Once they create a login ID and password that you can see, for students who do not have a Bloomberg terminal login, they need to navigate to this website, okay, which is bloombergfoundation.com, sign up as a learner, and then basically once this is created and you have been permissioned by the faculty, you can then come on to the Bloomberg terminal that you can see here, type in BMC, which stands for Bloomberg Market Concepts, and you can click into sign up, right? And you can sign up as a learner and continue from here onwards to start with the BMC course. A 10-hour course, say for example, if you're not able to complete the entire course in one sitting, that's completely fine. If you have like 1 hour available, you can spend 1 hour, do as much as you can and save it. So the next time when you log into Bloomberg, your course will resume from where you have left it last, right? You don't have to do it all over again. So that is the benefit. You can finish BMC as per your convenience whenever you have some time. The next question is, how can students download the data for research? So like I just mentioned, there's the Excel add-in which is available. Apart from that, if there's any data that you want to download, say for example, if you go to the FA page, you can basically, most of the times on different functionalities, there is an export button through which you can export the data into Excel. Okay. how many years equity historical data will be available to download for analysis purposes. So as much history as there is available, you will be able to download it. If you're looking at the terminal specifically, at one point in time, you can look at 40 periods, right? So it could be either 40 annual periods or it could be 40 quarterly periods. So if I just change period to 40 and hit enter, you will see that you are actually able to see this data from 2020 going back to 40 years or wherever the company was established, right? Or when the company got listed and so on. Suppose I need to collect consumption data of durables across the countries for 10 years. How can I do it? So I will need more information when you say consumption data across durables. So if you're looking at research, we do have a lot of research which is available on the Bloomberg intelligence page, and you can basically look at those particular industries. So if it's the durables, I can simply click into industries and you can check into which industry you want to look into. So say for example, if just as an example, if I'm looking at technology, right, I can click into the industry here. Similarly, there would be one for durables as well. And you can then see the research that is available. And in terms of conversion patterns, there are these different data libraries that we have, which analyze the industry, the company, and you can see all the metrics available here through the BI page. Okay, and this is available historically. So all you need to do is search on the BI page for the consumer durables industry, and then click into any one of the data libraries to see whichever has consumption available. The next question is how to download a particular index that are all listed. I just mentioned, right, the downloading. So say, for example, if you're looking at the Nifty index. So I search for Nifty, select the Nifty index. There's also this page which is called as historical price, right? Which is the historical price table, which is HP. And I can select if I'm looking at the market cap data or if I'm looking at price, right? So I can click into the drop down here and I can find a field. So say, for example, if I'm looking at P ratio, so I can find a field and I can simply search for PE and select the ratio field from here, right? Click on select. So I can download market cap and PE ratio at one single time, click into export. But I would say most of this data is available on the terminal itself. So you can download only in cases where you absolutely need to download the data, because there is some amount of limit that is associated with the amount you can download on a monthly basis, right? So, but nonetheless, this is the way you can download data through the HP page. Then we have a question from Clincy, how to get details about a list of companies that adhere to a particular norm. So this is, we will need more information on this, to be honest. When you say a particular norm, which norm is it? That sort of information will be needed before I answer this question. And to give you an example, it could be those companies that are compliant with the BS6 norms for automobile. As we know, renewables is gaining more and more traction, and the government has made it mandatory for automobile companies to manufacture vehicles which are BS compliant, BS6 compliant. So that could be one norm. So it actually depends which norm are you referring to. Can you show how to download commodity market data? So it's exactly the same. Say, for example, if you talk about commodity, if I'm looking at gold or if you're looking at oil, you select the commodity, go to this page called HP, and you will be able to see the data. Click on export to download the data. Will we get household level data indicating family aspects in India? So if I go to this page called ECST, you will be able to see all the data that's available here, including household data as well. So there is the, so say for example, if I look into CPI, right, if you further drill down, you can basically see how the CPI is composed of. Similarly, if you're looking at household data, you can basically click into any one of the sectors here and see information regarding the household data. So for this question, the page that you need to go to is ECST. So this basically tells me the business and consumer credit outstanding for personal and household sector, and so on, right? So it's actually the page to go to for that particular page, question. Can you explain what is GRI or what is BRR? Okay, so any sort of time series data investment on children by household, you'll have to navigate through this ECST page to see where it's available, or there's a sort of an index for this data, right? So that is something you'll have to check on this page, because we do have a page which is called as SecF, which is a security finder. So most of the times, these data sets that you're asking are actually covered by some indices that track this investment on children by household. So if I go to SecF, this is like a master function where all the tickers are available. I can simply look into index, because this I'm sure will be tracked by an index, and you can look into which index that you need. So if it's an index on, say, something like investment and children, you basically need to search on this and see if it is available. If not, we have this page called ECST, through which you can download. And finally, what you can also do is quickly shoot out an email to the Bloomberg education team. I'll share the email address with Professor Shibu and the library members. They will share it with all the students. And if there's something available, the team will get in touch with you and tell you how to get to that page through the Bloomberg. Perfect. So I think we've taken a few questions and preparing those. I hope Dr. Fungal were helpful. To conclude the session, I will hand it over to the faculty member for the closing address.
Okay, if nothing is there actually, then we'll wind up the session, because now actually, personally from my side, from the library side, actually, I would like to thank actually Mr. Chintan for taking time actually conducting the webinar, but we need to work it out, because there are many issues to be discussed and actually work it out. That actually I will do separately. And formally, actually, we need to actually give vote of thanks. Actually, my colleague Dr. Bhaskar, he will give the formal vote of thanks. Over to Dr. Bhaskar.
Thank you, Professor Ramaya, for giving me the opportunity to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Pondicherry University, Central Library, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty thanks to the speaker, Mr. Chintan Lotia, Accounts Manager, Bloomberg, for explaining the importance of Bloomberg to the management community and how to utilize the Bloomberg. A big thank to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Universityin, for his guidance and support extended towards the conduct of this webinar series. I must mention my deepest sense of appreciation for Professor Rajiv Jain, Director, Culture and Cultural Relations, Pondicherry University. He readily accepted our invitation to this program and said that he will be with us for this program today. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor K. Chandrasekhar Rao, Dean School of Management, for all the support extended towards the conduct of this webinar. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor C.K. Ramaya, University Librarian, Pondicherry University, for his guidance and directions in reaching out the faculty, research scholars, and students of the university through innovative and effective events like this. I also wish to express my gratitude to all participants of this webinar for making this event a grand success. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record my hearty thanks to the entire library team for their help and support in making this event a grand success. I also extend my thanks to Pondicherry University Computer Center for providing necessary technical support and for sending the communication to all the participants. Thank you, one and all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Bhaskar.
Yeah.
From Bloomberg, I would want to thank everyone, including the Vice Chancellor, Professor Raji, Professor Ramaya, Professor Chandrasekhar Rao, the entire library community, Professor Shibu, for organizing and helping us have this event with Pondicherry University. I sincerely hope this in some way will help the students in getting a better understanding and starting with the BF during the placements. And we will definitely hope to have more and more such sessions and increase our engagement with Pondicherry and with the entire student community. And lastly, for all the students, faculty members, research associates who joined the session, my deepest thank you to everyone for taking the time out and joining us for this session. I really hope all of you and your families are safe and all of you are staying healthy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Yep. Mr. Chintan, actually, you can disconnect all the users and I would like to have a chat with you.
Sorry, sir.
You please disconnect all the users, all the participants. Then I'll get back to you again. We will have actually a discussion. We need to plan something actually in future webinar. They're slowly going.
I will end the session right now.
Yeah, I will also come out of that.
I will end the session now.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.